Porsha, I'm taking a training session this afternoon. You'll be there, right?
Yeah, defo, that's brilliant.
And, about this weekend,
I'm playing.
I'm going to start you on central midfield.
Serious?
You're going to be the playmaker. Everything is going to go through you.
I'm buzzing. I won't let you down.
You've worked really hard lately. Made good progress. Proud of you. Ready? Yeah.
What's this all about?
Guess who's going to be starting midfield this weekend?
Probably because Rochelle's on holiday, so we need someone to fill in.
Jealous much. If you spent more time on the pitch than you did on the catwalk, Tony might actually notice you.
So I want you all to find and write about an example of Macbeth's guilt. Off you go.
Why is that your screensaver?
Oh, it's my first time coming on as a sub.
It's because it's you and Tony together, isn't it?
Oh, what are you on about?
You've got a crush on him.
Are you mad?
Trying to find ways to spend time with him, like sneaking out of lessons. Or the other night.
I only asked him for a lift because it was Lucy's birthday. I didn't want to be late.
I'm just looking out for you because I know the trouble it causes when you get obsessed with an older guy. I was dead embarrassed when people found out I liked Mike.
Are you tapped or something? Just because you had a weird thing for Mike?
Stay away from him, Porsha, I mean it.
Don't fancy him, all right?
Poor guy better get running.
You want to shut up?
Porsha, sit down.
Or do we need to shut you up?
Okay, I think as we have agreed, when we can't control our anger, we need to go to the inclusion unit till you're ready to rejoin classes. Thank you.
Come back inside and let's talk about this.
Well, what for? I hate this place.
Oh, come on, it's not that bad.
You so don't get it, do you?
Porsha, what's up?
Oh, this school, it sucks.
Okay. I hear you.
Every time I try to do anything, someone ruins it. Even Shola. Thought she was my mate. She's proper turned on me.
So you're angry? Fine. What do we say about anger in training?
It can be energising.
Yeah. Well, you've got to keep it under control, remember? Don't let them get in your head. Same as on the pitch. Control, concentration, confidence.
I just don't know if they'll let me play in the session after lunch.
Well, Mrs. Walters has got your back. Maybe she can have a word.
Oh, I heard her playing at the club later.
Yeah, all thanks to Mr. Charles.
It's great.
Actually, Shola, if you've got a minute.
Yeah, of course.
I just wanted to ask if maybe you could go easy on Porsha.
Why, what she said?
No, not much. It's just, I think Portia's a bit more vulnerable than she seems, being in foster care and stuff. So maybe tread gently around her, yeah?
I was just worried about what I thought.
What?
I thought she had a crush on you, but she went crazy when I said it.
Crush? Right, well, I'm glad you told me. You were just looking out for her. You're a good friend. Good game, Shola. We've been missing you down at the club. When you come down at the weekend, start in midfield.
Oh, well, I usually play defence, so...
Let's give it a try.
Is Shola starting in midfield at the weekend?
Maybe you should take a step back from the team for a bit. Get your head together.
But I thought I was the playmaker now.
You messed up. Try using this next time, yeah?
Hey, everything all right?
Yes. Teenage girls and their drama. Do your head in sometimes, don't they?
Hiya.
You shouldn't be in here.
I just wanted to say if Shola or anyone asks, I'll say, I asked you for a lift and you said no, and I've never been in your car.
I don't know what to do, Porsha. You put me in a difficult position.
I'm so sorry, Tony. I swear, please let me make it up to you.
I even bought you a present, you know, for working so hard. But now...
What was it?
If you want to talk, I'll be at the club tonight. I'm sorry. About earlier. I shouldn't have lost my temper.
No, it was my fault.
You know it's because I care about you, don't you?
Yeah, I know. And because of these stupid rules. Honestly, the teacher would rather have got mugged on the way home than got a lift.
I just don't want anything to jeopardise our friendship. Or get us in trouble.
I'll be more careful. Promise.
Do you want this present then, or what?
Yeah.
Close your eyes. Brand new, your size.
Oh, Tony, I love it. Thank you.
Try it on. Where you going?
Toilets.
There's no need for that. Just try it on here. I thought you wanted to make it up to me. If Shola was right about you having a crush on me, I wouldn't mind. Because it's mutual. I really like you, Porsha. And you look amazing in that top. You look even better out of it. You can wait till I've gone, then you sneak out. Don't make a sound.
Not